Welcome to Slash Forward. In this episode, we're following up on the outcome of the Rage virus pandemic with 28 weeks later. If, in watching these events, you feel yourself called to become a member of the Renner Nation, consider subscribing to the channel. Let's get to it. We open on a couple attempting to thrive in their minimalist survival situation. We learn they're worried about their children sent off before this whole thing happened, and considering the possibility of making more. Until Sally tries to get in on it, because Sally is a freak. This is actually a small survivors commune preparing to break bread when they're interrupted by an insistent knock at the door. It's a small panicked boy who they let in, and as they try to ascertain if he's cool or not, his pursuers attempt to help themselves to some pasta. The house explodes into a cacophony of violence, with everyone attempting to retreat to the fallback point. Unfortunately, Jacob is the only one who makes it to the barn loft, and Alice, having run upstairs to save the boy, gets split off from Don, whose courage then wanes and he opts to focus on his post-pandemic rebuilding plans. He gives one last longing look toward the window before saying goodbye forever in his heart, and makes for the dock where he's happy to see Jacob has gotten the boat warmed up for him. He climbs over Jacob's back to get in, and unsurprisingly ends up being the only one in the boat as it floats on down the river. Through a sequence of informational cards, we learn these events were part of the early stages of the breakout. The infected starved out after about 5 weeks, and we're revisiting London 4 weeks after reconstruction began. We learn the efforts are proceeding under the watchful eyes of NATO forces, charged with the protection and processing of repatriated citizens. As Tammy and Andy make their way to a small island that's been cleared for use, we learn these are Don's children, and despite their excitement about their new penthouse, they immediately inquire about what happened to their mom. So Don tells them the story, which is sparse in details and rich in lies. Meanwhile, we learn a little bit about the backbone of the encampment. The epidemiologist, Scarlett, has concerns about introducing children and the possibility of a new outbreak, but Stone, their stoic leader, has a fail-safe plan.
If it comes back, we kill it.
With guns, he says as he suffers an involuntary ejaculation, and the residents go to sleep as the snipers look on, practicing their aim and voyeurism. The next morning, the kids almost immediately make the decision to solid snake their way into the kill zone. While they don't get past Doyle's watchful eye, they do gallivant around piles of biological waste and find transport, riding deep into the city until arriving at their as-of-yet uncleared home. Having not been debriefed on what quarantine is, they start gathering items to bring back with them. But Andy gets bored quickly and goes snooping around, eventually stumbling upon his now feral mother, who acts only halfway crazy and is scooped up when the military catches up with them. Back at camp, Don is relieved to hear his kids have been retrieved, but he makes a huge batch of trouser chili when he hears his wife came back with them. That evening, Scarlett discovers that Alice is a carrier, but shows no symptoms, possibly due to a genetic abnormality. She argues with Stone about running tests and learning versus shooting and exterminating. This decision is made for them when Don uses his universal janitorial access to make amends for his greatest shame. Alice forgives Don, sloppily, and he unwittingly becomes patient 0.1, ravaging Alice and as many men as he can find. When Stone discovers someone's beaten him to the killing, he jealously calls in a code red. Unfortunately, word never makes it to the private guarding the kids, so after he wanders off briefly, they get a sort of Disney 4D pandemic experience. Scarlett frees them and tries to get them out of the general population, but Andy's small stature is an extreme disadvantage and he floats away in the crowd. The civilians are put in an all-or-nothing situation, herded into a confined space for their own good, and then discovering that the soldiers left the back door unlocked. The virus spreads quickly as Andy dips into the air duct, and the herd busts through the chains, which they find to be an easy task when teamwork is employed. Topside, they do their best to distinguish targets from civilians, but Stone gives them an assist by declaring everyone on ground level a target. Doyle ends up hitting his moral limit after gunning down about a dozen civilians, and he rolls into a survivor hideaway where Tammy, Andy, and Scarlett have reunited, and leads them to safety while hoping no one saw what he did on the roof. He makes contact with his buddy Flynn, who confirms firebombs are incoming, so their first task for survival is getting out of District 1. Their ranks are almost immediately thinned out, but after some quick draw sniping by Doyle, they make it over the gate and walk away slowly as the city explodes behind them. Although the problem is not completely eradicated. At the rendezvous point, Scarlett takes a moment to impress upon Doyle the importance of the children. It's likely that at least one of them took on their mother's genetic mutation, and they need to study their blood for a possible future cure. Flynn confirms he's on the way, but warns that a herd of infected looking for a turn on the merry-go-round happen to be converging on their location. However, we learn this is a problem easily solved. If you have a rotocopter you can use as a human weed whacker. Flynn then pulls back to extract them from the stadium, and recommends Doyle ditch the filthy civilians along the way. As they proceed through town, they take cover in a car as gas clouds roll through, and are forced to take risky measures to get the vehicle started. And this, my friends, unfortunately, is where Renner, the greatest Avenger, taps out. Scarlett steers him around the clouds of gas gas eventually taking cover in the subway. Here they find themselves forced to make their way in the dark, using the night vision for direction as they trot upon innumerable corpses. They all fall down the stairs and scatter in the confusion before Don shows back up. He eliminates Scarlet, and then expresses his fatherly love by taking a nibble from Andy before Tammy puts him down like a dog. In an attempt to protect his sister, Andy runs off to live with the Chuds, but doesn't make it far before collapsing. They discover his immunity, but with Scarlet dead, they have no idea what to do with this information. And when they arrive at the stadium, Flynn seems to decide that if everyone else died to protect these kids, well, damn it, maybe he will too. And they all fly off together. 28 days later, an outbreak begins in Paris. Unfortunately, we never get to see what the rest of the European continent did to handle the outbreak, leaving us with just one question to answer. Do rage-infected humans count as zombies? If you enjoyed the video, I'd love for you to become a part of the channel by subscribing. Thanks for watching.